Today, I will be going over how I teach all of my students all of their major scales. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? My name's Aaron, helping musicians get better, faster through performances, educational videos, and product reviews. And again, today, I'm going to be going over how I teach all of my students how to learn their major scales. Scales are something that a lot of students seem to have a hard time, hanging on to, and some students tend to get it right off the bat. And depending on who you are and how well you can manage that, it can lead to a lot of frustration and even losing auditions. I know for me personally, it was something that I struggled with when I was in high school taking like all state or all county auditions, but even all the way up to college and juries and stuff like that. It was something that I had a real hard time with. And so when I became a teacher, I made sure to make it a point of emphasis to make sure that my students didn't go through the same struggles that I went through when I was coming up through school. So this is the process that I've come up with to help my students all learn. And for the most part, most of them by about winter break, 7th grade, if I get them pretty early in 6th grade, by about winter break, 7th grade, they know all 12 of their major scales, or they know 7 of their major scales that they need for middle school here in Florida, at about 2 octaves each. And I apologize for the title of this video, algorithms and the whole thing, but I'm going to be primarily focusing on this as a brass player or a low brass player's perspective. So if you came on this and you're a violin player hoping to learn how to play your scales, some of these techniques might be applicable to you, but if they don't, I apologize. So step 1 is that you get rid of the scale sheet. So one of the things that a lot of music teachers do, and it's kind of not their fault, like I understand why they do it, they're in control of a lot of people, but they'll just throw a scale sheet at you, especially if you say you're gonna be doing an audition. They'll throw a scale sheet at you. They won't teach you how to create key signatures. They won't teach you how to read scales or anything like that, or read key signatures. They'll just throw a thing at you and it looks like essentially hieroglyphics to you at the time. And they'll throw it at you and they say, learn it. And a lot of times they'll be like, all right, memorization on B flat next Monday, good luck. But if you're able to master the things that I mentioned that teachers sometimes tend to neglect, like reading a key signature and or building a key signature, you should be able to create any scale you need to out of thin air without having to look at a scale sheet. This also assumes that you know all of your fingerings, which if you don't know any of the fingers for the scale, that scale tends to be a good time to learn. But you won't actually necessarily need a long sheet of paper with a ton of notes on it dictating every single note to you. The second thing you need to keep in mind is to completely stop trying to do this based off of fingerings or slide positions. If you're going through the B flat scale and you're thinking about it, okay, open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1, 2, 2, open, and you do this for 12 scales, 2 octaves each, like you're gonna start to really start doing some mental gymnastics. Your brain is gonna start to handle this like you're trying to figure out nuclear launch codes, and you're just gonna end up looking like one of those memes with all of the math going on in front of somebody's head looking super confused. Scales are in musical alphabetical order. So if you know the letters and you know the key signature, you can create the scale. And through this process, we work on the scale slow enough initially that you can really think through every scale. So instead of your B flat scale being open 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, it just becomes B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. Way easier to say. Again, it's just an alphabetical order. And if you know what all those fingerings are and you know what those notes are, you can identify it and play it right off the bat. The third step is learn how to create key signatures. I'm gonna go through a quick and dirty explanation of it. There are plenty of resources to learn how to do this really well, which I might try to link some of them down below. But if you need more explanation, this is gonna be quick. So for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna go in depth with it, but this is kind of the process. Okay, so first let's figure out how to create the key signature that we wanna create. So we're talking about A flat, right? So you wanna remember with your A flat, with your flat scales, you wanna remember your order of flats. Now this ain't gonna be pretty, but it ain't gotta be pretty. So flats go that way. The order of flats, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, literally bead, greatest common factor. Sharps are backwards. I'm still really bad at this, so when I wanna go and write out the sharps in order, I will literally do this. I'm still really bad at doing it backwards. A lot of people are way smarter than me and they can do that. I cannot. So we are trying to figure out, okay, how do I know what flats are going to be going into my A flat scale? So what you do is you take the name of the scale. So you go we're looking for A, right? We're doing A flat. You go all the way in, B, E, A. Then you're just going to add one extra one. And there's like your word bank for scales. Now, it doesn't work the same way when it comes to sharps. With sharps, you want to be a little bit different. Let's say you're trying to create the key of D, right? So D, you're going to go down one letter, which would be C. That's your new sharp. So you just add all of the sharps that are in there. Again, this is a really quick and dirty explanation of all that stuff. But I will link down to some resources, especially musictheory.net. That is a fantastic resource that I use all the time to help me instruct my students with reading key signatures, identifying key signatures, and building key signatures. So now that we know how to create the key signature, let's take that ability and apply it to learning how to play a scale. So the first thing I would do is I would go through the scale on like a piece of paper or whiteboard or whatever I happen to have. Let's do, for this instance, let's try an A flat scale. We'll have a red and black theme because it goes Spartans. So we're just gonna go up and we're just gonna fill this out. So we just go A, B, and again, this doesn't have to be super pretty. We're just kind of doing it. Because in the state of Florida, we also do arpeggios in our all-state pattern, you're going to see that those are going to be the color notes. So that's why I'm painting in a couple of these with different colors. So that's all that is there. F, G, and A flat. All right, so I have not added in any of the notes in the key signature yet, nor have I built the key signature. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I'll do a quick, oh God, that's really dirty. Sometimes I'll do a quick, okay, let's make the key signature and we'll do all that kind of stuff. We'll like build the key signature, especially if they haven't done it before. Most of the time though, we just kind of do it like this. Okay, let's figure out what our notes were that we were supposed to do like we did earlier. Well, we remember that B, E, A, okay, got to add one more. So now we got to put all those in. So I'm just going to go in the order. B flat, E flat, A flat, which we have two of them because that's the name of the scale, and D flat, right? So those are all of our notes now inside of our scale, plus I have highlighted the arpeggio notes. So now that we've done that, we will identify all the names of the notes. So we'll go through, okay, what's the name of this note? A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat, right? And then especially if I have a younger student who might not know like what the fingering for D flat is, for instance, we'll go through all of these. Hey, what's this A? What's this A? Oh, it's first valve. Okay, what's this? This is open. Okay, how about C? That's 1 and 3, because most of my kids don't have 4 valve horns. Okay, 2 and 3, so on and so forth, right? And then we'll do it like that. Now, the student has created all of that. They aren't being handed something. They aren't going through a scale sheet. And then what I'll do is we'll get rid of this. We'll keep that all up. I'll have the student recite what all of the scale nonsense is, and then I will completely strip off this entire page, put up a new staff, and say, okay, come make the scale for me. Tell me the scale again. What flats are in the scale? And I'll give them a little word bank, and it'll be like, B, E, A, D. Okay, cool. So D. So we'll have to put that in. But that's kind of how we will create that and work on it as a visual aid. So we've gone over all of the notes and we've talked about the key signature and we've gone over all the fingerings or the side positions. And then we're going to bring it over to the instrument and we're going to apply it there by just saying the names of the notes pretty slow and fingering along just to make sure we have that. So like for that A flat, it wouldn't be anything faster than like going A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, all the way up the scale. Then once we've talked it through and all that kind of stuff, then we play it about the same speed that we spoke through the scale. We'll play it at about the same speed. And once they show real mastery of that, then essentially that's their homework. That leads to the next part of this, the frequency in which I do this with students. But I don't like approaching everything in this like giant mass. I like to try to chunk things up. I call it like the pizza practice or the chocolate cake practice, where I'm not gonna go and say, okay, we gotta learn all 12 scales, go at it, and then we take an entire like lesson to learn all 12 scales. Like that's daunting, that's way too much. and I don't feel like that's gonna get anything done. So what I'll do is I will do essentially a scale a week. So we'll do all the process that I just mentioned, we'll do all that kind of stuff. We'll talk through the scale, we'll write the scale out, we'll push it with the buttons down, and then we'll play the scale. We might play the scale a couple times just to make sure. I'll answer any questions that the student might happen to have or fix any problems that are going on. And then I'll give that as homework. And then when they come back their next lesson, I expect, we'll do our little warm-up thing together, and then boom, play for me. What does your scale sound like? And if they are demonstrating that they have mastered the scale, and I'm not looking for speed when I talk about mastery, but they understand the process of the scale, all of the notes in the scale, they can go up and down it very successfully. If they can do all of that, then we say, great, and then we might move on to another scale. But I do make a point of emphasis before we move on to another scale. I'll go, great, your A flat scale was fantastic. Let's work on the other scales we worked on, which normally by the time we get to A flat, they've worked on C, F, B flat, and E flat. So we'll play all of those scales before or after we play the A flat scale, and then we'll include the A flat scale, and then we will go for another new scale, which in this case I'd probably do G next. But all that to say is I'm reinforcing the scales we've already learned. I'm making sure that the student keeps up with all of those scales on top of the new scales. I always tell them, when you get done practicing your new scale, make sure that you do a run through of all of your other scales. This is the reinforcement part of it. This is the part that's so important. So many of you have learned your scales and you learn it for like a scale test or something like that, or an audition, or the things, and then you go and try to bring that information back 2 weeks later after having not touched the scale for a while, and it's just completely gone. We've all done it. The history class that you studied for a Friday test on, then you walk into class on Monday morning and you don't remember any of the information you had. That's what we're trying to avoid while reinforcing all of these scales. And if I notice that one of the scales that we've already gone through, even if it's not the new scale, is lacking a little bit, we will go back and we will redo that scale. I'm making sure not to add new or more daunting material before I make sure that they are really mastering and showing and demonstrating that they can really take on these scales that we've already done. And that leads me to my final notes on this. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay if you have to go back and fill out scales. It's okay. I went through not knowing a lot of my scales until about my sophomore year in college because I am the dumb. But what I've learned in my time as a musician is that it's the patience and the persistence and being willing to just put in the slow work, the slow effort, and the slow grind that all great musicians tend to share. Yes, there are going to be people in your class who are naturally just gifted at learning these things and they'll pick them up really quick. And there will be some people who are a bit slower than you are. We all learn at our own pace. Everything's going to be slow. Just keep to your own and keep doing it, and make sure that you really understand them. I do the scale a week because it's not a daunting task. It's just one scale. You get 7 days to practice it, and you can really make sure that you are progressing at a natural pace. But if you're having a hard time with your scales and your friends aren't or anything like that, that's okay. I did too. And now I'm teaching scales to students, and there's no scale I can't play, but it took time. It was a point of frustration for me. So that actually leads me to my question of the day, which is a little bit different than normal, but I'm really curious. Leave it in the comments down below. How were you introduced to learning scales, and did that process work for you? I was one of those students who just had a band director put a piece of paper in front of me and say, these are scales, learn them. But I'm curious if that was the norm for everybody else, or if their teachers did other processes with them. I'm really curious. Let me know again in the comments down below. Yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you could, hit that subscribe button if you're not already, to get more videos kind of like this one to you just about every other week. Also, the podcast is back. We've already launched one episode, and then we've got another one coming out next week. I will always be premiering those on Monday night before they release on podcast platforms on Tuesday. In the premiere, we get to chat, we get to hang out. It's a fun time. So if you're down for that, look out for those things. I think I already have the next one planned to go on the channel, so be ready for that. But anyway, again, my name's Aaron, reminding you to be happy, but never satisfied. I'll see you next time.